In 1887, a man in Chicago applied for a building permit. What he told the city was that he was constructing a 3-story commercial hotel. What he was actually building room by room, floor by floor, over 3 years and through dozens of different contractors who were each fired before they could understand what they were building, was a machine designed to kill human beings. The building had more than 100 rooms. Some had no windows. Some had doors that opened onto brick walls. Some had trapdoors that dropped directly into the basement. Some had gas pipes built into the walls that connected to a control panel in the owner's private bedroom, so he could flood any room in the building with gas without leaving his bed. In the basement, there was a dissection table, several acid vats, a kiln large enough to cremate a human body, and pits filled with quicklime. The man who built this was 30 years old. He was a doctor and a pharmacist. His name was Herman Webster Mudgett. But the woman he had seduced, defrauded, and possibly already killed had known him as Henry Howard Holmes. The city of Chicago knew him as a charming and successful young entrepreneur who was about to offer affordable rooms to the thousands of visitors arriving for the World's Fair. None of them knew what was waiting on the upper floors. Herman Webster Mudgett was born on May 16, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, the son of a strict Methodist farming family in a cold, rural community where conformity was everything and deviation from it was a source of shame. From childhood, classmates remembered him as unnervingly intelligent, deeply unsettling, and obsessively interested in medicine and anatomy. A story circulated for years that local bullies had dragged young Herman to the office of the town doctor and forced him to confront a human skeleton, expecting him to be terrified. Instead, he was fascinated. He stood completely still and stared at the bones for a very long time. By the time he was a teenager, he had already begun experimenting on animals in the woods around his family farm. He went to the University of Michigan Medical School, where he had access to cadavers, legal corpses provided for medical education. Investigators would later piece together that Holmes had almost certainly been using those cadavers for insurance fraud while he was still a student, taking out life insurance policies in the names of unidentified bodies and collecting the payouts. He left the University of Michigan in 1884, owing money to multiple people under multiple names. He moved to Chicago in 1885 with a medical degree, a talent for fraud so refined it operated like a second instinct, and a plan that the city of Chicago would not fully understand until long after the damage was done. The thing I find most disturbing about Holmes is not what he built. It is how he built it. He hired dozens of contractors, each one working on a small section, each one fired or driven away before they could understand what they were creating. He deliberately distributed the knowledge of what he was making so that no single person ever saw the complete picture. He understood intuitively that the most dangerous thing he could do was let anyone see the whole of what he was. That is not impulsive violence. That is architecture. That is planning that begins years before the first victim. Holmes arrived in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood in 1885 and talked his way into a partnership at a local pharmacy owned by a widow named Elizabeth Holton, whose husband was seriously ill. Holmes was charming, medically qualified, and energetic, exactly what Mrs. Holton needed. He ran the pharmacy competently, and the customers liked him. When Dr. Holton died, his wife stayed on and then quietly vanished. Holmes told customers she had moved to California. No body was ever found. Holmes was now the sole operator of a thriving pharmacy at the corner of 63rd and Wallace Streets. He was 24 years old. He had already been married once in New Hampshire, a wife he had not divorced before marrying a second woman in Minneapolis, and he was currently engaged to a third. He was running insurance scams across multiple states under multiple names. and he had just taken his first step toward building something that no one in the history of American crime had ever attempted before. He began buying the empty lot beside the pharmacy. He began meeting with architects. He began firing every contractor who asked too many questions. The building that would eventually be called the Murder Castle was 3 years away from completion. And the World's Fair that would deliver thousands of trusting visitors directly to his door was 6 years away. The building Holmes constructed between 1887 and 1890 was extraordinary in its engineering of concealment. The ground floor operated as a legitimate pharmacy and commercial space. The second and third floors were a hotel, 100 rooms arranged in a deliberate maze of dead ends, windowless corridors and doors that opened onto blank walls rather than connecting spaces. Holmes designed the confusion deliberately. A guest who tried to navigate the upper floors independently would find themselves disorientated, turned around, unable to find their way out without assistance, without Holmes. Some rooms were fitted with gas jets controlled from a panel in Holmes's private quarters. Some had peepholes concealed in the walls. Some had doors that could only be opened from the outside, rooms you could be locked into but could never unlock yourself. A chute ran from the upper floors directly into the basement, a smooth drop that deposited whatever was placed at the top directly into the basement below. The basement itself was Holmes's private laboratory of disposal. An acid vat capable of dissolving human remains. A kiln operating at cremation temperatures. Pits of quicklime. A dissection table. Holmes sold articulated human skeletons to medical schools, cleaned, preserved, professionally assembled. He told the schools he obtained them through legal cadaver sources. He designed and built the entire structure himself, constantly changing contractors so no one would understand the full scope of his murderous design. By 1890, the building was complete. By 1893, the World's Fair was coming to Chicago. And Herman Webster Mudgett, now operating entirely as H. Holmes was ready. Here is the question that I cannot resolve no matter how many times I come back to this case. Holmes hired dozens of contractors to build this. He ordered specific equipment, gas pipes, a kiln, a chute from upper floors to a basement dissection table. Did any of those contractors, at any point, look at what they were installing and ask themselves what it was for? Did anyone see the whole picture and choose not to say anything? Or did the compartmentalization work so perfectly that nobody ever held enough pieces to understand the completed puzzle? The 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago was one of the most significant events in American history. Built on the south side of Chicago, just kilometers from Holmes's hotel, it drew more than 27 million visitors over 6 months, at a time when the entire population of the United States was 65 million people. They came from every state in the country and from across the world. They came by train, by horse, by steamship. Young women came especially. The fair represented something specific for women of that era. A chance at employment, at independence, at a life outside the small towns and strict households they had grown up in. The fair had created thousands of jobs, hotel work, serving, cleaning, administrative positions. Young women traveled to Chicago alone, with small amounts of savings, looking for a future. Holmes positioned his hotel perfectly. It was comfortable, affordable, well-run, and close to the fair. He employed young women as staff, secretaries, hotel workers, assistants in the pharmacy. He was charming, attentive, and interested in them in a way that felt flattering rather than threatening. Historical research has identified many of Holmes's victims as young women who came to Chicago for the World's Fair, seeking work, adventure, or new beginnings, only to encounter Holmes and meet a horrific end. They had traveled hundreds of miles to start something new. They had arrived at exactly the wrong address. The honest truth about H. Holmes's victims is that the exact number will never be known, and that uncertainty is itself a product of how thoroughly he destroyed the evidence. He confessed to 27 murders, but when investigators checked, several of the people he claimed to have killed were found alive, which means either Holmes was lying about some killings for unknown reasons, or he had lost track of who he had actually killed. Historians now believe the confirmed victims number closer to 9, though the true number may be higher and may never be established. What we know is this: Julia Connor was Holmes's secretary and mistress. She became pregnant with his child. She and her young daughter Pearl disappeared from the hotel in December 1891. Emmeline Sigrand was a young stenographer from Indiana who accepted a secretarial position at Holmes's office after he personally recruited her. She disappeared in December 1892. Minnie and Annie Williams were sisters from Texas. Minnie was a school teacher who became romantically involved with Holmes and signed over significant property to him before she and her sister vanished. And then there was the Peitzel family, which is where the entire operation finally collapsed. Emmeline Sigrand was 25 years old. She had accepted the job with Holmes because it paid better than anything else she had been offered, and it was in Chicago, where the World's Fair was happening, where everything was possible. She wrote letters to her family telling them she had found a wonderful position and a wonderful city. Those letters stopped arriving in December 1892. Her family did not know why for years. That detail, the letters that suddenly stop, appears in so many of these cases. Someone was riding home, excited about their life, and then they weren't anymore. And the people waiting for the letters had no way to know what had happened to the person who used to send them. Benjamin Peitzel was Holmes's business partner and accomplice, a man who helped Holmes run insurance fraud schemes across multiple states, knowing what he was involved in. In 1894, Holmes constructed his most elaborate con yet. He planned to fake Peitzel's death, collect a $10,000 life insurance payout, and split the money with Peitzel, who would be living quietly under an assumed name. The insurance company paid out. What Peitzel did not know, what nobody outside Holmes's own mind knew, was that Holmes had murdered Peitzel for real, substituted his actual corpse for the supposed dummy body, and then collected the money while simultaneously telling Peitzel's wife that her husband was alive and well, and in hiding, traveling with Holmes across multiple states. Holmes then took 3 of Peitzel's children, Alice, Nellie, and Howard, away from their mother under the pretense that he was reuniting them with their father. He murdered all 3 of them. Alice and Nellie were found in a Toronto trunk, gassed to death. Howard's remains were found in a stove in Indiana. Holmes was leading Peitzel's unsuspecting widow on a separate travel route across the country, keeping her close and manageable, while her husband had been dead for months, and 3 of her children were being killed one by one. Police eventually discovered the body of one of the murdered children, and this discovery led to Holmes's arrest. He was caught in Boston in October 1894, initially on unrelated horse theft charges, while the full magnitude of what he had done was still being uncovered. Holmes was convicted in October 1895 of the murder of Benjamin Peitzel, the one murder for which prosecutors had sufficient physical evidence for a conviction. During his time awaiting execution, he sold his confession to the Hearst newspaper chain for a reported sum equivalent to hundreds of thousands of dollars in today's money. The confession was theatrical, boastful, and almost certainly partly fabricated. He claimed 27 murders. He described killing people he was found to have been nowhere near. Several of the people he confessed to killing were found to be still alive. Investigators and historians have spent over a century trying to separate Holmes's self-mythology from the verified truth. And the most honest answer is that the verified truth, while significantly lower in number than his claims, is terrible enough on its own. On May 7, 1896, Herman Webster Mudgett, alias H. Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison in Philadelphia. He requested that his coffin be filled with cement and buried at great depth, and that his grave location be kept secret. He was afraid, according to the prison chaplain, that someone would exhume him and conduct experiments on his body, the way he had conducted experiments on others. The cement coffin was placed in a grave whose location was not publicly recorded. In 2017, his descendants petitioned to have the grave exhumed and the remains verified by DNA testing, amid ongoing theories that Holmes had faked his own hanging. The DNA confirmed it was him. Herman Mudgett died on May 7, 1896. He was 34 years old. The murder castle burned to the ground in August 1895 while Holmes was awaiting trial. Arson was suspected but never proven. A post office was eventually built on the site at the corner of 63rd and Wallace Streets in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood. The corner of 63rd and Wallace Streets looks unremarkable today. A post office occupies the space, serving the community with no outward indication of the horror that once occurred there. The people who queue inside that post office to buy stamps and mail packages are standing on the ground where Herman Webster Mudgett built a hotel with gas pipes in the walls and a chute to a basement crematorium. The 1893 World's Fair that drew 27 million people to Chicago has been over for more than 130 years. The city has changed beyond recognition. And at the corner of 63rd and Wallace, ordinary people go about their ordinary business in a building that sits on soil that cannot tell them what it once held. Some things the ground keeps to itself, H.H. Holmes is often called America's first serial killer. What that title obscures is something simpler and more important. Behind the legend of the murder castle, behind the inflated confession numbers and the newspaper sensationalism and the Netflix documentaries were real people. Julia Connor was Holmes's secretary. Her daughter Pearl was a child. Emmeline Sigrand was 25 and writing excited letters home about her new job. Alice and Nellie and Howard Peitzel were children who trusted a man their father trusted. They deserved better than what they got. They deserved to matter more than the building that killed them. If this case affected you the way it affects me every time I return to it, subscribe to Vault of Crime. Every week we go deep into the cases that deserve more than a headline. We will see you in the next one.